I think we can all agree that growing a jewelry business isn't easy. It takes part strategy, part talent, part your willingness to take action and actually lean in and do the work, and part mindset. Now, that last part is oftentimes a thing that might be holding you back or getting in the way of you reaching those big goals that you have for yourself in business. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer over at Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I help jewelry designers and makers do amazing things with their businesses so that they're making more profit, scaling their sales, and working with more ease and flow by using our methodology, the desired brand effect. Now, before I dive into today's episode, if you like what you're listening to today, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and you like the video. And if you know someone else who might be struggling to reach their goals in their jewelry business, make sure that you share it with a friend. Mindset is a tricky subject because sometimes we don't realize how deep and ingrained our subconscious mind is operating in the real world. And if you feel frustrated because you're not reaching those big goals that you have for yourself in business, or you feel like you keep self-sabotaging, well, there might be a reason behind that. And that's why I brought my guest on today, Elliot Roe. He is a hypnotherapist and the founder of the Primed Mind app. You can find this app. I'm going to share with you how you can find the app later. He has helped his clients make hundreds of millions of dollars just by working on one thing, their mindset. You are going to love today's episode. So let's dive in right away because I know you're going to get some key takeaways that are going to help you reach those big goals you have. I am really excited to welcome a friend of mine, Elliot Roe, onto the show today. Elliot, thanks for being here.
Hey, Tracy, thanks so much for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you because mindset is something that we talk about a lot with the artists in our community. And I think one of the biggest challenges in growing a business is really getting your head in the right place. And we were at a baby bathwater event about 2 months ago when we were recording this. And we were talking a little bit about your app, Primed Mind, and what you did. And then we ended up sitting at the airport for about an hour before we were getting on our flights. And you gave me such great insight. So I'm really excited to dive deep into this. And we're going to also share with you a way to download the Primed Mind app, which I definitely think all of you listening should do that. So, Elliot, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you kind of got into hypnotherapy.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist and mindset coach. I started about 11 years ago, but my journey in hypnotherapy was earlier than that, and that was I had a really severe fear of flying. So I would turn down long haul trips. I just was pretty terrified of it. So this is sort of mid-20s, I guess. I eventually reached out to a hypnotherapist, something I was very skeptical of, and she managed to resolve it in an hour, which completely sort of blew my mind. And it was interesting. So I go into this session. We talk a bit about my fear of flying. She gets me into this very relaxed state. Hypnotherapy isn't really like the stage hypnotherapy. It's more like a guided meditation session. So I was in this very relaxed state, and it starts bringing up these memories from the past that explain your phobias. And I saw a memory came up for me of being a small child, seeing a small picture of a small plane at my grandfather's house and being told that it had crashed and killed his business partner, which explained my fear of flying. Like, it's relatively logical. But the thing that was really interesting to me is it wasn't a conscious memory. It's not something I had remembered. So I finished the session, felt differently about flying, spoke to my parents and was told that, yes, that did happen. It's a real thing. So a memory that I wasn't aware of came up, explained why I had this fear. And then by working through it, the fear had gone. It sort of played on my mind after that. And I wanted to learn how to do this because it changed my life. I could then travel far more easily. Ended up getting trained as a hypnotherapist and then moved into sort of mainly high performance work. So I worked with a lot of athletes. I worked with an awful lot of poker players and professional gamblers. And that then turned into working with business people. So now predominantly I'm working with founders of companies, executive CEOs, helping them understand the way their mindset might be holding them back, and then using hypnotherapy to help them overcome self-sabotage, fear of failure, fear of success, things like that.
So you were telling me about the results that you had for one of these poker players once. What was the biggest cash winning that this poker player had?
I mean, I've had ludicrous results in poker. So I had one client who I worked with for a number of years. He made $30 million. I had someone win the main event in poker for $8 million. It's sort of the total is way over $100 million of just poker players in sort of cashing in tournaments. So from the poker side, it's been extraordinarily successful.
Oh, that's so cool. So you mentioned something about these like past thoughts, and I'm assuming that there are things that are in our subconscious that don't really come to the surface. So when you're working with these people, are you dealing with things like this? You've learned about a plane crash and it died at your grandparents, like stuff that people don't remember, or is it more of a conscious?
So a lot of the time it is conscious memories, especially if it's a very significant trauma. People do have a decent idea of what's gone on in their childhood. Sometimes they're very horrific things and they come up and we have to deal with those things. Other times it's this sort of more tucked away. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be particularly traumatic. That yes, I was told that someone died, but it wasn't a member of my family. I didn't know the person who died. So it's not necessarily super traumatic stuff. What it is memories that have taught the child how to stay safe. So it could be something your parents have said, like the classic one is obviously the parents saying you're stupid or you're not good enough, and then this becoming a program that the child believes. Or another one that comes up frequently is around money and that rich people are bad or rich people are greedy. And if you've been brought up around that, oftentimes you'll have this limit as to how much money you feel is acceptable for you to make, because there's a part of you that believes if you make more than that, you're then a bad person or you're going to be judged by other people. So it doesn't have to be a major trauma. It can just be these subtle comments that you've taken on as truths. And when we take those on as a child, they're then the background program we're running through our subconscious. So it's a bit like we have sort of Windows running and that's what you can deal with on the surface, but then behind it is the code. And the sort of the things we learn in childhood are the code, the program that we keep repeating moving forward. And my work is on changing the code.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because we deal a lot with this kind of stuff in our coaching program, Momentum. And we have mindset coach and everything. And I think the craziest thing is that like so many people adopt these stories that are delivered from their parents and they don't even realize that it's something. I mean, I have one like that it's really easy to make money, but it's hard to keep it.
Oh, that's a good one. That one comes up a lot as well.
I've been working on it for a long time. Like, I need to keep the money more. Just joking. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. But there's like so many people are programmed with these money stories or other stories about, I mean, it's fascinating when you like hear some of the frames that people are operating from. So, I mean, obviously these kinds of things, these mindset issues sort of inform like how well you're going to perform in your career or as an entrepreneur or business. But like, how do you describe peak performance and like, why is it so important to like get into that state?
Well, the way I sort of visualize all of this in my mind is we sort of all to some extent are starting off as a cube. And then by doing this inner work, we're sort of shaving down the surfaces to become more of a ball and allow things to flow. And really the work that I'm doing to help people reach peak performance is helping them, in my case, usually do the last very small percentage of work that's going to make a very big difference. So people aren't coming to me when they're really struggling. I'm working with people who are already high performers, but they know they're at a 95 and the 97 is exceptionally more valuable to them to be that 2% more effective. So we're looking at, hey, what are the subtle things that are going on that if you adjust, if you change, will change up your business or change up your happiness or your relationship. And oftentimes the client knows what they need to be doing. They just feel like there's a force field holding them back from doing it. And if you feel that there's a physical sensation, a sickness in your stomach, a pressure in your chest, your subconscious is creating that to keep you safe for some reason. And that's the start of our work is, okay, there's no reason for you to feel a pressure in your chest when you try and make the sales call. Like you're phoning someone up. There's no reason for a physical sensation. Your subconscious has a reason for developing that for you. My job is to work out why we're having this physical response to something that doesn't need one. And that's where the hypnotherapy work comes in.
That's so cool. Yeah. Because a lot of things that we like, a lot of our, like you think of people who, I used to teach yoga a long time ago, and we always talked about the connection between the mind, body, spirit, right? And how like physical manifestations in the body are actually indicative of other things that are going on in your life, or like your belief system, or what's going on. It's always fascinating to me because I saw that on your podcast. You have a podcast called Prime Mind, as well as an app, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. On your podcast, you interviewed Brendan Burchard, who I always think of as like the high performance guy, right?
Yeah.
So I can't wait. I didn't get a chance to listen to the episode before, but I can't wait to listen to it. So when you're kind of working with these people to get to that high performance place, like, why do you think the hypnotherapy versus just like doing straight up mindset coaching is more powerful?
So what I've seen is a bit like when I was describing the idea of the dealing with the windows versus the dealing with the program behind it. It's quite easy for me to ask someone what they need to be doing and then just tell them to start doing it. And that's what a lot of the sort of traditional coaching is. It's an accountability process of you need to be doing, you say that you need to be exercising, you need to text message me every day and say that you've done your exercising, or making these agreements with the coach to try and push yourself forward, visualizing goals, how you want your future to look, future pacing, that sort of work. Where the hypnotherapy is slightly different in the work that I do, and the sort of the regression hypnotherapy I do, is it's a belief that everyone is just running an automatic program. And if we can change the automatic program, there's not this same battle around trying to force people to do things that are uncomfortable. It's much better to make those things comfortable rather than uncomfortable. So it's about removing the triggers so that when the things happen in your life, it's not firing off saying, you're not safe, you can't do this. We just want it to be, this is the rational thing to do. These are the next steps I take in my business. So I'd say that's the main difference between the regression type work and the traditional life coach goal setting type work.
Because I'm curious by nature. So I really want to hear some case studies of like really cool stuff that happened. Is there anything that comes to mind besides the poker players?
Besides poker, I mean, there's an awful lot. I mean, I've worked with professional athletes. I've had people get world records. I've worked with UFC champions, help people get the belt in the UFC. I've worked with stock traders who've become some of the most successful traders in America since I've started working with them. Crypto traders, which obviously is certainly a boom industry for my industry right now. Founders of companies. And a lot of the time, the theme, whether it's someone who's fighting in a cage or poker or business person, it's just this theme of self-worth. I mean, that seems to be the core issue of everything is, do I deserve to be the best in the world? And a lot of the time, they'll come to me as top 10, but they need to really be working on this understanding that they are allowed to be the best. And that giving it 100% is the important thing. And that if you fail, it's only feedback and you can keep going rather than being scared to give 100% because if I fail, I'm then bad. So a lot of people hold themselves back from that ego place of, if I don't try, I can't fail. And if you're comfortable financially, it's a very comfortable spot to be in. Yeah.
I think it's challenging if you're trying to get things off the ground and you're super worried about failing because like the stakes are a little bit higher, right? Things are,
but it's still a case of if you can't give 100%, then the chances of you succeeding are very slim.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to get something off the ground and there's going to be this resistance of, how can I put in this work? I don't know if there's going to be procrastination. There's going to be mental roadblocks that we see when people start companies. And that's why so many companies fail. But if you can turn it around to be more of a growth mindset around all of this, and I'm starting a new company, there's going to be lots of challenges that come up. I'm not an expert. I can get guidance, but there are going to be mistakes that are made, and in 3 years' time, my life's going to be much better if I give it 100%. That tends to be the most sort of valuable minds. That it's all just a growth and learning process. But if you give it 80%, so that you can tell yourself, if I'd given 100, I would have been successful, but I've maintained control by only giving 80%. That's a very dangerous spot to be in.
That's really interesting. It's an interesting perspective to think about it that way, because giving 100% sometimes feels exhausting, or probably less for people. But I think that there's a way that you can do it and conserve your energy at the same time.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about 100%, I'm not necessarily talking about working 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean more of the 100% of doing the things you know you need to do in your business that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So making the phone call, making the sales call, talking to the mentor, looking at your accounts, like the number of people who they won't look at their accounts. And, so how are things going in your business? I don't know. I'm scared to look. Okay. Like that's a significant, yeah, so that's a significant issue. Have you done your taxes? Like there are a lot of things where people will set up these bombshells that at some point they're going to go off. And those things can be cleared up. And typically they're linked to these phobias, these staying safe, this not. So when I'm saying 100%, I don't necessarily mean work all the time, but do the things you know that you should be doing to drive your business, and don't allow a fear or a phobia to stop you giving it like your rational all. I believe in life balance as well. But it's you don't want whole segments of your company that you're just pretending aren't there.
Yeah, that's good. I would say that for our community, like one of the things that I think there's a huge avoidance around is checking the accounts, or like really having a clear number on the sales, because that creates accountability for being on track or not. And I want to just share an interesting story. I think I told you this, but my first company did fail. And it's probably because I wasn't giving it 100, or I was in this avoidance state of not paying attention to some of the stuff. And or just ignoring some of the signs that were showing me like, oh, don't do that. Like you might put yourself in jeopardy or whatever it might be, because it was like right around, it was in the year 2008, and I'd shipped a bunch of orders, and some of the orders weren't getting approved by my factor, but I shipped them anyway. And I took the risk, and of course they didn't pay. And so that started the spiral of like, putting me into a bad financial position where I couldn't pay my bills and stuff like that, which ended up wiping out the company. And the rest is history, because that happened to a lot of people, I think, at that time. But after that, in that aftermath, like I know that even during that time, one of the things that actually really helped me in my best year with that business, and that the year that I had my best year, 2007, was like looking at the accounts and the sales thing a game, and like gamifying it so that it became fun and like empowering, instead of something that was like draining and dreadful. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, I can look back to a couple of times in last year when I kind of got into that avoidance state again about looking at the accounts, because it's so important. You need to know your numbers in order to get to that next step.
And honestly, just so many people hide from it. Like it's, it comes up a lot in business, and even at higher level businesses. I mean, I really think it is the true accountability. This is where you're really at. And a lot of us, oh, I made about this much money last month. Oh, I'm doing about this much this year. Is very comfortable having those numbers be a bit malleable. They're a bit flexible. If you look at your numbers, you actually know your numbers, and it removes that flexibility. Yeah.
So everyone who's listening to this podcast, I want to challenge you to go look at the numbers right now, or after this podcast is over, and play out a full 100%. Elliot said so.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah, it's his fault. So we talked about mindset. We talked about hypnotherapy. We talked about some of the common things. It seems like for everyone, like the main theme is like, I'm not good enough, or whatever it is, or I don't deserve this, or those kind of like core limiting beliefs that like run, behind the scenes of all people. Now, besides hypnotherapy and mindset work, what else is involved in like developing peak performance?
So, what I'm also looking at in clients are all of the really low hanging fruit in their lives around this. So what does their sleep look like?
Yeah.
What does their diet look like? What does their exercise look like? Do they have life balance with socializing with friends and family? How's their relationship? All of the, what's their network like? Are they pushing themselves to network with the right people for their business to grow? Who are the important people in their lives? And are those people going to be happy that they're succeeding?
Right.
Because a lot of the time, if you're surrounded by people who really want you to stay where you're at because that keeps them comfortable, that's going to hold you back more than anything else. So there's the sort of the mindset of the individual, which is what we've been discussing, but then there's all of these little pieces factor into how successful that person's going to be and how optimal their life is going to be moving forward. So, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to perform. If you're not doing any exercise, if you're not looking after your body, you're not going to be able to perform. If all of your friends are criticizing your successful months and talking behind your back, you're probably not going to be very successful. So it's sort of ticking off these other areas as well, that the things we need to be aware of that can be, again, more landmines that the individual's going to have to deal with.
What do you do when it's a family member you mentioned something like when your friends are like criticizing you behind your back? What do you do when it's like a family member doing that? Like, hopefully it's not someone that is in your immediate family, your spouse or something like that. But I know some people don't feel supported. And I can think of my own personal experience where that happens, where someone is like either resentful or they just like, they're trying to tear you down and make you feel better. Like, how would you handle that? Or how do you coach it?
One is with just empathy. You've got to feel sorry for the person, that's how they're living their life. It's very rare that someone more successful than you is tearing you down, or someone's in a good place. It's usually someone who's in a rough spot. But then I would also adjust the amount of time and attention and energy you give that person. So you can still be polite, you can still be friendly. But if you know that someone is going to be actively tearing you down, being critical of your lifestyle, your business, they probably don't deserve an awful lot of your energy. Yeah. So I would reduce the energy that you give them, but from a place, not from a place of this is a bad person, but I feel sorry for them, for the position they're in, but I'm choosing to not be around that energy as much in my life. So like a kind removal from the situation rather than a screaming, shouting, I'm not going to be near you again, you're a terrible person. I don't think that helps anybody either.
Yeah. You said something before about networking with the right people. Now, last year was an interesting year. I mean, you're living in a state that's much more open where people can actually like get together. And I've been to Utah so much in the last year that like the restaurants are open and stuff like that. But what do you say?
There was no change.
What? I know.
There was no change. It's just Arizona, like, it's COVID. It's not real.
Arizona was like 5 weeks and that was it. Like everything was open. It doesn't feel the same than as being in New York or something, but where I moved away from. But what would you say to people who are in some of those places that were severely locked down and they weren't like, they're feeling like super trapped or controlled? Like, how would you expand your network that way?
I mean, you have to use the online as a route. I mean, we've been fortunate enough, we've had a lockdown, but we've had a time when there are Zoom calls like this. There are infinite, groups, the groups like your own. It's utilize those types of groups to get a network of support around you, people who are dealing with a similar situation. I mean, ideally, where possible, people who are more successful than you in the same industry. So you want to surround yourself ideally with a circle of mentors, and then also give back where you can as you're moving up those levels as well. Remember the help that you got from others, and then offer that same help back to those who are the level below you, so that you feel that you're giving back as well, and there's some kind of reciprocity in the whole process. It has been a crazy year when it comes to networking, with everyone being locked inside, but I do feel that if you choose to, you can still find and build community through the internet. I don't think it's impossible. And then you can just plan a big party for when the world happens.
When we're done. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're so much out of it. It's funny because my boyfriend Jason's on a plane right now. He just texted me pictures like this plane is packed. We've traveled a lot during the pandemic because we were just like, we're not going to stop our lives to do whatever. And he's like, every seat is full. Like, this is the first time I've been on a completely full flight in like a year and a half, which is nuts. People are out. They're like, I'm traveling this year. I feel like all the vacations are going to be sold out. So I want to kind of segue, like, this has been an amazing conversation. You developed an app. How long ago? It's called Primed Mind. I highly recommend that everyone download it. It's a great app. I use it. I listened to one of Elliot's meditations this morning, and it was funny because we were at an event for a networking group that we're a part of called Baby Bathwater. And I was sitting at a table the first night with Elliot, and the Congers, Margaret and Seth Conger, and they're like, why does that guy's voice sound so familiar? Because they go to sleep to you every single night. We had a good laugh about it. So tell us a little bit about the Prime Mind app and your emphasis.
So I mean, that actually started with one of those poker players who'd been really successful. Yeah. So we'd started working. He had this dramatic success, became the number one in the world, won millions and millions of dollars, and he put a lot of it down to it done. And he was like, most people shouldn't work with me financially. I'm quite expensive to work with. So he's saying, how can we share this with as many people as possible? So we came up with the idea of creating an app where we'd have these suggestion hypnotherapy sessions in, so we could help people set themselves up for different aspects of their life. So start the day, to go to sleep at night, to work on their confidence. I mean, even their networking skills, their sales skills, sports skills, etc. So we made this app where you download it. I think there's about 40 audios in it for free, and then you can upgrade 100 audios, and it just helps set you up mindset wise to be able to perform at your best in these key moments. So, before you give a public speech, there's one to help you with your confidence. That's something a lot of people struggle with, or things like that. So we created that and put that out there, and that's on iTunes and Google Play.
And then you also have little mini courses in there, because you were telling me about this forgiveness course. I still haven't taken it. I do think that you have an abundance one too, for like financial well-being.
The abundance one hasn't launched yet, but there will be, maybe by the time this comes out. But there's like confidence, determination, winner's mindset, health and fitness, sleep courses. So there's these 7-day courses that you can work on your mindset over a set period of time, and it's really the repetition when it comes to suggestion hypnotherapy. So you want to be listening to it before you have a specific event, if it's one of the specific ones, but then if it's just general confidence or self-esteem, utilizing those courses frequently and just allowing your mind to hear the words of affirmation and start to define yourself and picture yourself as a confident person. A lot of the time people have these labels for themselves, that I'm an anxious person, or I'm an angry person. And the truth is that these are just learned behaviors. So you learn to be anxious, or you learn to be angry, or you learn to be rude, or however you label yourself. And I think if you can put in the effort and the time to utilize a program like this, you'll start to redefine how you describe yourself to yourself. And with that change of label, you see the change in behavior.
That's so great. And I want to mention that if you want to check out the Prime Mind app, you can head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/primed and download it right there. I got the paid version. I love it. I want to share one disclaimer that you say at the beginning of each of your hypnotherapies. Not utilize this while driving or operating heavy equipment or whatever.
Bring a vehicle. Yeah, we have to put that in, because it's an eyes closed process. And it's like, close your eyes. And I just have this nightmare of someone putting it in their car and, closing their eyes whilst driving and thinking it's okay. So we just want to make sure that people aren't out there driving with their eyes closed.
Well, it's funny. I'm so glad that you said that, because I opened the app one day and I have this apartment that I work out of, and I live at my boyfriend's house. He lives 30 minutes away. So I've been doing this commute now, and it's weird. And I like to catch up on my mindset work. I opened the app and they're like, do not listen to this while driving. And I was like, It was
for you, Tracy. It was just for you.
So I couldn't listen to my Prime Mind while driving, but I got to the apartment and listened to it this morning. But
good stuff.
Elliot, thank you so much for listening. If you want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Head over to elliotroe.com, or the website about the app is primemind.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for listening in and watching this episode today. If you'd like to learn more about the Primed Mind app or Elliott's work, you can head on over to flourishthriveacademy.com/primed. Make sure that you download the app today. It is amazing. I use it every single day for meditation, to go to sleep, for mindset work. You name it. He has some amazing things going on. So make sure that you check it out. And if you've enjoyed this video today, make sure that you share your key takeaways in the comments below and share it with a friend. Thanks so much. This is Tracy Matthews signing off. Until next time.